Yeah, let's see.
And welcome everybody to the Western Canadian webinar series. Everyone is welcome and all our webinars are free. However, we do have some expenses such as Meetup, Zoom, the webpage, and of course the upcoming conference. So we'd appreciate it if you might be able to donate. Any amount you can, just go to the RMA webpage and click on the donate button. They're not hard to find. They kind of jump out at you. And we are an inclusive community. And everyone is welcome, secular, free thinkers, humanists, skeptics, atheists, and people of all backgrounds and identities are welcome. We've never had any disruptive attendees at our webinars, and with your help, we intend to keep it that way. So discussion is strongly encouraged, but just show respect for everyone. And at the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A. And if you have a question, please use the hand raising icon, which you can find by clicking on the reactions button down below. And when you raise your hand, we'll call on you, ask you to unmute yourself and ask your question. But after you've asked your question, please lower your hand. It can get very confusing if you don't. And now, with no further ado, it is my privilege and pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Dave Warnock. Dave is an ex-evangelical, and maybe he'll explain that to you. He's a speaker. He's an author. You must read his memoir, Childish Things. And recently, Dave founded a nonprofit that he calls I Am Dying Out Loud. And instead of listening to me tell about Dave, I think you would rather hear Dave tell you how to live and die out loud. And with that, it is over to you, Dave.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Okay.
And I know you're muted. I don't know why I asked you that. I'm going to assume you can. As she said, I'm gonna talk for a bit, tell you a little bit about myself, what it means to die out loud, to me anyway. And then I do encourage Q&A, and I usually offer a lot of time for Q&A because I find that a lot of the most valuable conversations come during that time, because then we're talking about the stuff that really interests you rather than what I want to talk about. So please ready your questions, and whenever that time comes, we'll have a lot of time for Q&A, and I'll keep my presentation a bit short for that reason. The other reason I keep it short is because I run out of voice, and my voice gets a little gravelly, and although it is very white sexy, it does get a little bit tired and uncomfortable after a while. So I have to kind of shorten what I would normally do because of that. How to Live and Die Out Loud. That's a provocative title, to be sure. I had that at I was at a conference in Washington, D.C. last weekend, and I put that up as the title of my talk, a breakout session I had. And it drew a few people into the room just because they didn't know what in the hell I would be talking about. How do you die out loud? How do you live out loud? And those kind of things. I'm also going to be sipping as I talk because I have to quench my throat. How to Live and Die Out Loud. I've been essentially dying out loud for the last 4 years. It was a little over 4 years ago when I was diagnosed with ALS, commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease, a motor neuron disease. In the UK, it's called MND. It's a terminal disease with no treatment and no cure, and it affects the muscles. It actually atrophies my muscles because my nerves quit communicating with my muscles, and so eventually my muscles just quit working. it started in my hands and fingers and progressed through my arms, and now it's affecting my legs and my ability to walk. Eventually, it'll travel up to my mouth area. It'll affect my speech and my ability to swallow and breathe, and it will kill me. That's the blunt, long and short of it. So when I got diagnosed with that, I decided to die out loud. And I didn't think about what that meant. We just started calling it that. I had a friend who kind of became a manager for me, and she began to book me, schedule me on podcasts and YouTube shows and speaking engagements. And I started traveling all over the world, all over the US and Canada. And I had speaking engagements scheduled in Europe until a pandemic shut all that down in early 20, when was that? 21, early 22, I guess. Is that right? Man, it's all blurry. No, early 21. I don't really know. I've lost all that. But anyway, all that got canceled. We were talking before the
You need
broadcast.
some 2020 vision.
I do. I don't know. I lose track. I lost a year and a half of the short time I have left. I'm still kind of pissed about that, but it is what it is. So I started dying out loud, and we called it that just for lack of a better term. And essentially it became a mission of mine to talk about living this one life we have the best way we know how, and making the most of the moments that we have and the life that we know we have. A quote that I adopted early on is actually a Confucius quote, which says this: "We have two lives, and the second one begins when you realize you only have one." Well, that may seem obvious to people who've never been religious. Yeah, of course we have one life. But if you've been religious like I was, if you've been an evangelical like I was, you're taught that this life is just a dress rehearsal for the real life, that the real life is eternal life, and that this is a temporal life that's going to pass away after a few short years, and we're going to live in eternity in heaven or hell. And so by definition, when you believe that, this life gets minimized and you don't make the most of it as you would if you realized, or if you believed that this was the only one we have. And so I lived that way for the better part of 3.5 decades as an evangelical charismatic Christian. I was caught up in the Jesus movement in the mid 70s. I was a Jesus freak. I was all in for Jesus. Ran coffee houses, did street ministry. I became a pastor. I was on church staffs as pastors and associate pastors, youth pastors, all the pastors. And I did that for almost 40 years until around 2011, after a pretty arduous 1.5 years of investigation into my faith and the origins of it and what I believed and why I believed it. I let all that go. I basically kicked all that to the curb and came to the conclusion that what I had believed my whole adult life was false. I was wrong. I'd been wrong. I'd been duped, and there was no God. There never had been a God. And I came to the conclusion I was no longer a Christian. I was an atheist. I used the A word, the small a word, agnostic, for a while. Then I realized, yes, I'm an agnostic because that just simply means I don't know, but I'm also an atheist because that means I don't believe that there's enough evidence to support the idea of a God. So by definition, that makes me an atheist. Excuse me. That was about 2011. And I just let all that go. And it affected my family. It affected my marriage. That didn't make it. Lost a lot of friends. And I essentially lived for the next 4 or 5 years as an out atheist. I began to, I was living in Nashville, Tennessee. We had a very strong community of ex-Christian atheists that we did a lot of things together. And I essentially rebooted my life in my mid-50s and was living my best life, if you will. And about that time, along comes this disease called ALS. And in February of 2019, I was diagnosed with ALS. And that changed everything for me. And that's, as I alluded to earlier, that's when I began to do this thing called dying out loud. And what that means to me now is that I've, for the last 4 years, have been able to speak to people about life and death in ways that other people really can't. And I found that out after I started doing it and realized that I had something to say from a perspective that was unique. An atheist who used to be a Christian, who now has a terminal disease. That's a unique perspective. And so I took advantage of that perspective, for lack of a better term. And I began to just talk about this everywhere I could. And it's what I'm still doing. And it's why we've formed a nonprofit, which I'll talk about a little bit more. But the summation of this is that there's two things that all of us have in common. Every person, not only in this Zoom meeting, but every person in Canada, every person in the US, every person in the world right now, there's two things we have in common. We're born and we're going to die. And that's probably, if you think about it, the only two things that every human on the planet have in common. There's a guy named Mike in Chicago tonight having a beer somewhere. I don't know that, but I can almost promise you there's a guy named Mike in Chicago having a beer tonight. And he and I have this one thing in common, these two things in common. We've been born and we're going to die. Now, we don't know each other and we'll never meet, but these two things are true about both of us. And the only other thing that we have in common is that we have this space between those two events, being born and dying, that we call life. That's the living part. And when I let go of faith and came to the conclusion that this life is all we have, and I'm responsible for everything that happens in my life, good or bad, it was a liberating epiphany, but also a sobering one. Because as a Christian, you've got an eternal get out of jail free card. Anything you do that you don't like how it went, you just repent, ask for forgiveness, and you get a do-over. Well, as an atheist, as a secular person, as a free thinker, I don't have that luxury. I have to suffer the consequences for my behavior if it's bad. And I think that by and large causes non-religious people to behave better than religious people. Yes, you heard me right. I think that's true. Because we don't have a scapegoat. We don't have a savior to bail us out. We're responsible for our actions, good and bad. And I think that makes us behave better. That's another subject altogether. That's worth a talk all on its own, which I don't have time for tonight, or the voice for. But the space of time between being born and dying is the story that we write. It's the life we live. And what I've been doing, when I had to restart my story a couple of times, letting go of faith, kicking it to the curb, if you will. I don't say I lost my faith, because that's something that is a passive experience that can be a negative experience. I don't consider it a negative experience. I examined my faith. I found it lacking, and so I set it aside. I said, no, I don't want this anymore. I didn't lose my faith. I put it away. I kicked it away. And that to me is different. There'll be questions, no doubt, in the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer them. The fuller, because one of the questions that I invariably get asked is, what caused you to lose your faith? Well, you got to read the book. It's Lois alluded to it earlier. It's called Childish Things. You can get it on Amazon. It's my memoir, and I've really had a very I described it in lengthy detail what it was, my entrance into faith, my life with it, raising a family in it, and then my departure from it. But there's really no easy answer to explain why I lost my faith. It was a series of events that there were things that instigated my examination of it, but the reality was that I examined it closely and found it wanting. And so I set it aside. So I rebooted my life after that as an atheist. Then I left my marriage because my wife at the time remained a believer, and it caused a continual disconnect, a growing disconnect between the two of us. So after 4 or 5 years of that, I ended that marriage and moved on to restart my story again. And about the time I'm getting some good traction on my story, then I get this ALS thing. And so I had to restart my story again, restart the ending, if you will. Now, I think I'm probably safe. It's probably safe to say that's the last time I'll have to restart my story. I think I'm on the final chapters here. I hope so. I don't know what else can happen that would that would detour me now, but I probably shouldn't say. So I think I'm on my final chapters with this ALS journey and this dying out loud. Because I started talking about dying and living in this final chapter of my life, in this dying out loud work, I started hearing from people who would see me on a show or hear a podcast, or after reading my book, they would reach out to me, or they would hear me at a talk I was giving. And I started getting emails and messages from people all over the world, truly, and sharing their thoughts about dying, sharing with me that I'd helped them come to terms with their mortality. I'd helped them focus more on the life that we now have, the moments that we have in front of us. I talk a lot about that. The reality is that this life we have is made up of moments, and that everything is about the moments. And people started resonating with what I was saying, and I started hearing from them. And I also started hearing about people with various physical ailments of their own and struggles. I would hear about people who lost a spouse to ALS, or were dealing with cancer or depression or any number of things. And I started hearing about their struggles with their healthcare and the medical systems that they were navigating through. And that's what led us this year to start the organization called I Am Dying Out Loud. You can find it at the website iamdyingoutloud.org. We didn't call it Dying Out Loud for a couple of reasons. I was already using that phrase with my the message that I've been doing, the work I've been doing. It wasn't a formal organization. It wasn't a nonprofit. We tried to get dyingoutloud.org, but somebody has gotten that website, so we couldn't get that. So we got iamdyingoutloud.org. And the more I thought about that title, at first I didn't like it, but then it settled in with me. And what I realized it meant was, when you add the word I am to the front of that, you're taking ownership. You're saying, I am dying out loud. It's not something that's happening to you. It's something you're actively engaged with. You are in it. You're involved in it. You've owned it. You've owned the fact that you're dying. And when you do that, as has been said, when you come to terms with the fact you're dying, you can get about living. You can get on with living. And so when you embrace the idea that I am dying out loud, you're also saying, by default, I am also living out loud. And what that means to me is I'm not going to let life happen to me. I'm going to live it on my terms. And I'm also not going to let death happen to me without me thinking about it. Now, you could get in an accident and it happens to you out of your control. But that's a small percentage of the way people die. Most of us die as we get older and something happens, the body breaks down, we get a disease, we get a sickness. When that begins to happen, we have a choice to make. We can let that passively happen to us, or we can embrace it and say, I'm not, as the poet Dylan Thomas said, I will not go gentle into that good night. I will rage against the dying of the night, of the light. Excuse me. There's an ownership there. There's a responsibility. There's a partnership. I am doing this. And I am not going to be afraid of talking about it. I'm not going to be afraid of embracing it. I'm just going to acknowledge that this is the one thing that all of us have in common. All of us who are alive have this one thing in common. We are going to die. Pause there for effect. Dramatic pause. There's something liberating and peaceful about acknowledging that. I think, for me, it is. Bevan and I we tell each other this often, we live in a state of denial in some sense. Because I talk about dying all the time. That's not fun for her. It's not fun for me, but it's a lot less fun for her. Because the harsh reality is that when I die, I will go to sleep and not wake up. She will wake up the next day and I won't be there. That's the harder path to walk. We all know this. If you've lost a loved one, you've experienced this. So the dying part's not the hard part. It's the living part that's hard. The living before death and the living after death. The death of someone that you care about. We have to embrace it, though. We don't have choices about this. We do. We can run from it. We can deny it. We can avoid it, avoid talking about it, avoid looking at it. But I don't think that serves us well. When I say Bevan and I live in a state of denial, what that means is we get up every day and we go about our business as though I'm not dying, as though I'm living another day and another day and another day. And we do that because we have to. If all of our focus and attention was wrapped around the idea of, well, I'm dying. That's one less day now that I have, the one that just finished yesterday. We are aware of that, but we focus on the living part. And we have to, because that's the thing that gives us energy, that gives us passion, that gives us love, gives us the ability to press forward. If I wasn't doing the I am dying out loud work, I would just be sitting home waiting to die. And life would be very, very difficult. We do know of ALS colleagues that we've met, people with ALS and their caregivers who don't have things like this to sink their teeth into and to give them energy. And life becomes really, really difficult when that's the case. The I Am Dying Out Loud organization exists for a couple of reasons. I mentioned the healthcare issues. I'm going to read you, just because it's better if you hear the full thing, I'll read you the mission statement. It's the elevator pitch. I Am Dying Out Loud seeks to enhance the quality of life by advocating against the unwanted intrusion of religion in the areas of healthcare, dying, and death, and by providing bucket list moments for those diagnosed with ALS. The essential element of I Am Dying Out Loud is the enhancement of life. This one life we know we have. And there's two ways we're trying to do that. The bucket list moments that I mentioned is a special element of this, a special part of the nonprofit, a foundation part as we build it up. It's just getting started. The organization just got our legal status with the IRS just a few weeks ago, so it's very exciting. We want to provide bucket list moments for people with ALS because when you're diagnosed with ALS, your life is turned upside down. And immediately you start wondering, how long do I have? How much money am I going to need to survive? What kind of equipment am I going to need? How am I going to pay for it? Because you're not going to be able to keep working. All those things are flashing through your minds. And the last thing on your mind is taking a trip to a place you've always wanted to go, or doing that experience you never got to do, but now it would be really awesome to do. For me, it was going scuba diving. An organization called Team Gleason provided that bucket list moment for Bevan and I to go to Hawaii and do an adaptive scuba diving trip. And the bonus that I got was to play with an octopus in the Pacific Ocean, not in a theme park or a water park, but in the wild. An octopus, they caught an octopus and brought it to me, and he wrapped his tentacles around my arm, and we became best friends. And he writes me on, he sends me emails, I send him emails, we're really close. It was an incredible, life-changing moment, honestly. And it was something that invigorated me and gave me another boost, if you will, to carry me a little further down the road with this ALS thing. I was getting tired and weary, and that was a boost that I needed. And so we want to provide that with people who've been given the worst news of their life. And the second part of the enhancement of life is this effort that we want to make to help people advocate for themselves in their healthcare experiences in the medical field. Because what we've seen, and what I've had so many friends share with me, and several of our board members have had these kinds of experiences, where zealous religious people have intruded and inserted themselves when it wasn't wanted in the healthcare process. Nurses coming into hospital rooms to pray with a friend's mom when they were told not to. Chaplains sent in to wait with a friend in a waiting room when that chaplain, all it did was stir up memories of spiritual abuse and sexual abuse when she was in the church. And here was a spiritual authority now in a waiting room with her while she waited for her grandmother to die. Those kinds of experiences are ubiquitous. And we're wanting to create a system that members can plug into to help advocate against that kind of intrusion in the healthcare process. Now, if people want someone in their hospital room praying with them, that's perfectly fine. We believe in freedom of religion. If you want religion in your experience, you should be free to have it. If you don't want it, you should be free from it. And you shouldn't have to fend off religious zealots when you're at your most vulnerable, which when your health is compromised, or when you're with a dying parent or a dying spouse, and some religious zealot comes in to take advantage of that, it's abusive and it's unforgivable. And so we're going to help people create spaces so that they can have the language and the courage to push back against that. And where warranted, we're going to write to hospitals and medical facilities and let them know that they have situations that are not optimal, let's just say. And so that's the gist of the I Am Dying Out Loud organization that we're now creating. We're putting the website is up. We're putting the nuts and bolts to it, adding content to it daily, getting the word out that it's something you can join, something you can, it's going to be there for folks to use. Now in Canada, another component of that is the death with dignity element that we don't have in this country, in America, other than a handful of states and DC, where folks can take advantage of medical assistance in dying for terminal illnesses, where those laws are available. I know you have made in Canada, and that gives you some options that we don't have in the States. The other thing that we've seen in the hospital and medical field that we want to address where needed and where we have the opportunity is that there are many hospitals that will withhold much needed care because of their religious restraints. That's especially true with Catholic hospitals or with religious hospitals. Now we may run into situations that we don't have the ability to do much in that regard. But we're going to look into where it's legal, where any hospital is receiving government funds, then it's very likely that we can put pressure on them. Pressure is maybe a strong word. We'd rather use the word suggestion. We want to suggest to them that maybe withholding important care for people based on your religious restraints is not the best thing. But that's something that we're going to look into down the road. But that's part of what the I Am Dying Out Loud organization will be about. So I don't know, how much of this you guys in Canada how much of this will apply to you. I know that we could talk about that in the Q&A if that's something that's of interest to you, but that's at least what we're going to try to make it nationwide and have chapters in each state, members in each state, and people that can advocate for themselves against unwanted religious intrusion in the healthcare process. Now that's the last thing that we've been up to. That's what I've been focusing on. We're traveling to a lot of conferences. The reason we couldn't be at the WeCanReason conference that you guys have coming up. I'm very sorry we couldn't join you there, but I was already committed to the American Humanist Conference in Denver that same weekend. So I wasn't able to be in two places at one time. I haven't figured out how to do that. I'm not the Holy Spirit, so I can't do that like he can, apparently, I've been told. What I'm going to do now, because my voice is just about gone, as you can tell, I'm not sure exactly how much time everything is allotted, but I want to give all the time you guys have for Q&A. And Lois, if you want to open that up to that, or if you want to have any response of your own right now, but I'll just take a breath here and let us move into that part, if that's okay.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate that. Yes, we will start our Q&A. And like I said, if you have a question, click on the raise hand icon and I will call on you. Meantime, Dave, I would just like to ask you, for those of us that don't have an organization but are learning from you, is there something we can do? I mean, if we know somebody that has a terminal illness or is just simply, in bad shape, do you have suggestions for how we can interact with them or what we can do?
Yeah, there's, I think, here's a tip. When someone gets a terminal diagnosis, the worst thing you can say to them is, well, we're all dying. Don't do that. Don't do that. While that's true, technically that person's true. That person is correct. Yes, we're all dying. But a terminal disease, a terminal diagnosis puts it in another category. And I like to say it like this. We all have the clock ticking, but I have the clock sitting out on my desk every day, staring at me. And so when someone gets a terminal diagnosis or serious health issue, cancer, any number of things that can, it can be the worst news they've ever gotten in their lives. There's really not a lot you can say that makes that better. but just being there is the thing to do. When I had people coming, I had good friends that just, they would say things like, I don't have words. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. But they would enter my presence and stay there
Mhm.
and not run from it, because some people can be uncomfortable with it and not know what to do with it. And if they don't know what to say, then they feel like, well, I can't be here if I don't say something. That's not true. You can be there and you should be there. You don't have to say anything. In fact, there is nothing to say. So they would come get me. We would go out and get a drink, and we would just laugh or cry or whatever the day brought. And no words were needed. Just being in the company of my friends was what was helpful. And I was just still Dave. I was still the same guy. It's just that things changed in terms of what the future looked like. And so being present, being available, not being afraid to show your emotions. I would have people just hug me and just start crying. And I was glad that they didn't hold back from that for fear of what their emotion would do to me,
Mhm.
because I wanted them to be who they were in the moment. I had to realize my diagnosis didn't just affect me. It affected everyone who cared about me. And when I realized that their pain was just as real as mine, I didn't want to take their feeling away from them. So I let them be them. They let me be me. And it worked. It continues to work. Yeah, when people see me now after not having seen me in a year, my progression, the disease has progressed, and they can see that I don't look the same. I don't walk the same. My hands are not functioning as well. They may have to feed me now, whereas before they would eat with me. Now they have to put food in my mouth, and I let them do that. It's funny, but I see their faces and they're sad because they see it. They see me fading away in front of them, but I don't want to take that away from them. So I don't try to hide myself from them, and I don't try to pretend it's okay. And we go through it together. I guess that's the point to answer your question. Go through it with them. Just go through it.
Mhm.
Don't run from it.
Oh, thank you. Very good advice. Okay, Dee Dee, want to unmute yourself?
Thanks, Dave, for your talk and telling us what you've been doing. It's been really interesting. I did get your book and I read it and I enjoyed it very much. And what I was really impressed by and what really moved me is how careful you were to talk about your relationship with your daughters. And I thought you were very protective of them. And I really appreciated that. And I wondered how um, has your relationship gotten any better with them? Are they in your life today? And then at the end of the book, I felt like you had held some back and maybe you were writing a second book. So are you writing a second book?
I am. I really only thought I had the one in me, but God damn it, I just keep living longer. So what are you going to do, right? Thank you, Dee Dee. I'm glad that came through about my daughters, because I really did try to hold them with kindness. And for those of you who haven't read my book, shame on you, but no, just kidding. In the book, or my experience was and I was very, very honest in my book about my own failings and experiences with everyone around me. But I do think I treated everyone with kindness, and I'm glad that came through, Dee Dee. But I lost relationship with my daughters. First off, when I was shunned by the church that fired me while I was still a Christian. And then when those relationships were just beginning to get patched up, I went ahead and became an atheist and told them that, and then that really cut things off. In retrospect, I probably could have been a little less blunt in my sharing with them that I no longer believed, but that's just how I did it, and not the best way. But both my daughters cut off relationship with me at that time, and they also cut off relationship with my wife because she was married to me, and they needed. She also couldn't be a mother and a grandmother, so we had 6 grandchildren that we never saw, and for several years that was the case. It was very, very painful. But I'm happy to report that one of my daughters, about 2 years ago, decided to open that relationship back up. My oldest daughter, Bethany. They live down in Florida, and Bevan and I have been to see them a couple of times, and the grandkids, and it's been really wonderful. It's been very normal feeling when we've been around them, and they love seeing Pops, and we have a good time together. My middle daughter still hasn't opened that back up, and I don't really know why my older daughter did. It just happened. I reached out one Christmas and she said yes. I sent Christmas presents. We got together the next spring. I saw the grandkids, and things have been good. And she knows where I'm at still. Her and her husband pastor a church. I mean, we are on polar opposites. They're trying to lead people to Jesus. I'm trying to lead them to Satan. No, not really. But I'm speaking out forcefully against evangelicalism. And they're buried in the throes of it. I mean, we're as different as we could be in our approaches to things. But I guess we've allowed space for each other to do what we're passionate about with respect. And, we'll do Marco Polos back and forth. That's a highly technical thing that a lot of you people probably don't understand. Us hip, cool people dig all the apps. So we send videos back and forth. And so the last Marco Polo, she did say, I am sad that you're not with Jesus, Dad. I do want you to be with Jesus. And I'll always want that. But I love you, and the girls love you. And so, she knows what I do. My work online is as public as it can be. Anyone who Googles my name will have hours and hours of video to watch if they want to. I have no idea if she's read my book or not. I haven't asked, but it's out there, and she could get it at any time. But I'm glad, Dee Dee, that it did come through, that I didn't hold anything against them, and I don't. They are living the life that I taught them to live. They're living their passion for Jesus, and that's how I raised them. Now, I didn't raise them to shun people. They got that from that wicked church that I was a part of. I don't think I was as kind to that pastor in my book as I was to everybody else. Oh, well. But yes, to answer your question, things have been repaired with one of my daughters, gratefully.
Well, that is great. Brian, would you like to ask a question?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, Dave, thanks for attending
Brian.
this. Yeah, you don't forget you said you would make it to our next conference next year. So
Yeah, I will.
hopefully that can happen.
I promise. If I'm able to travel.
Yeah. And yeah, it sounds like scuba diving with an octopus. That I've done the same as well. So I love octopus. I won't eat them now, and I
Please
try and
don't.
bug people
They're
and
all
tell
my
them you're not allowed to eat octopus. They're too amazing and intelligent, and I love them. So I was just curious, what else is on your bucket list? Any other big things?
Well, Yeah, we've checked a few things off, honestly, because I've been living out loud. We went skydiving.
Nice.
Yep. I had a dude strapped to my back, so it wasn't as fun as it been by myself, but that's all they would let me do. We did a helicopter over the Grand Canyon.
Nice.
We did a trip to Europe. That was also a bucket list moment that was provided by another. That's why I'm a big proponent in these foundations and nonprofits, because they provide such incredible experiences. Bevan and I had tried twice to get to Europe, and first COVID canceled a trip, and then her mom, being sick and dying, canceled the second trip. And so we finally made it over this past year. And that was a big, we got to the top of the mountain in Santorini, Greece, and we just embraced each other and started weeping.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it was like we finally made it, and we didn't know if we would. The thing with ALS is you just don't know how things are going to go. You know, when I can still walk short distances with some effort. Like when we travel, when we fly, we use a wheelchair in the airport, but then we wheel it down the ramp and then I walk onto the plane. But when I can no longer do that, then it changes the whole dynamic of travel. So as far as traveling other places, I don't know that we have other places, you know, we want to get to in terms of a bucket list. I haven't rappelled down into a volcano yet, so maybe I could put that on the list. I really, honestly, the focus this year is getting this nonprofit started, which we've got the wheels turning. There's still a lot of work to do, and then getting the second book, which most assuredly will be my last book. I mean, hell, I never thought I'd get one book written in my life, but I did, and it's a damn good one, and I'm proud of that. But I think the second one, it's important for me to get that finished. So if you look at the nonprofit and the second book as bucket list things, I think those are the things that are in my focus right now.
What is your second book going to be about? Is it just going to be a continuation?
Not so much. In a way, yes, but not really. It's not going to be a memoir type sequel. It's called. My first book went through several title changes, so don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be called Dying Out Loud. The subtitle will be What Dying Taught Me About Living. And essentially, it's more of a series of essays about the things I've been talking about the last 4 years, the experiences I've had, the things I've learned about living and dying, the things I've heard from other people, the people I've met. So it'll be that kind of a book, more of an, I hate to use the word inspirational book, but more along those lines, just lessons we can learn about living when we're facing death. And hopefully it'll translate into lessons anyone can take away and learn about living without having to face a terminal disease.
Mm-hmm. Wow, sounds wonderful. Hey, Dee.
I was raised in the same faith as you, and so one of the things I find very interesting is to read ex-pastors' books, especially. Yeah. And so I think you will understand this question, but I've wondered, because I've struggled with the retribution of an angry God, and I wondered, when you got ALS, did you struggle with that, thinking, oh shit, maybe he is real, and maybe this is my punishment? Or if you didn't, did anybody in your former life feel that, or, you know, sort of approach you with that idea?
I've had a couple of people suggest that God was judging me. Not as many as I thought might, but this is kind of funny but morbid. There was a man that reached out that was in one of my former churches that I was an associate pastor in the church back in Arkansas, back in the Arkansas days. And he reached out online and started scolding me essentially for turning away from God and suggesting that God was judging me. And in one of our dialogues, this was online, back and forth messaging, he said, if I was Jesus, I would have you die sooner because you're leading people away from the faith. In other words, you're doing damage to the kingdom. So if I was God, I would just take you out. Well, I didn't say this, but obviously God could do that. If he was God, he could just take me out. You know, he did an Exodus to open up the ground and swallow them up. Apparently he can't do those things anymore. But interestingly enough, not long after he said that to me, I think I may have responded with "go fuck yourself" or something kind like that. But interestingly enough, I heard from another former church member that he had died after he said that to me. So who's judging who? I don't know. But for myself, I mean, we laugh about it, but he's going to heaven, so don't worry. For myself, I never really had a sense that when I cut ties with faith, it was a very clean cut, if you will. There was no residue hanging around. There was nothing left of that. So when I got diagnosed, there was no sense of, oh no, God, I was just kidding. Let's talk about this, you know, this atheism thing. Let's talk. What do you think, big guy? Come on. I didn't have any of that. I was just, my attitude was, why would I think that I wouldn't be someone diagnosed with ALS? A certain number of people get it every year, statistically 5,000 a year. And instead of saying, why me? I just said, well, why not me? I mean, who do I think I am that I would be so special that it wouldn't affect me? It could affect any one of us in this Zoom room, and it just happened to be me. So I just I was pretty much, for whatever reason, I pretty much had the attitude of, oh, well, this is what it is. So now what do we do? I mean, I've had moments where I've been sad or angry, of course, but overall, it hasn't consumed me. It's just like, it's just a thing that happened to me, you know, like you don't choose where you're born or what family you're born into. It's just a thing that happens to you. And that's kind of how I look at this.
Thank you. Jim, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Let's see, I guess a comment or two. You're talking about the being fed, which of course reminded me of when my mother was very far gone. And so she couldn't feed herself. So I did some holding up a fork, and she could grab food off the fork. But that was about the limit of her ability at that point. Yeah. And that now she wasn't able to talk at that point. Yeah.
What, did she have ALS?
No, this was more a hope on. She'd had a stroke some years earlier, and then she had a bunch of mini strokes later that sort of kept decreasing her abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her limbs were affected and her mouth. Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, the mouth was least affected, but
Oh, okay.
yeah. because she was able to grab some food off the fork and chew and swallow.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's my thing. If you can get the food to my mouth, then I can eat it. I just can't, I can't lift my hands. I can't lift things up, a fork or a spoon or a cup. I drink out of a straw now, a sippy cup. I like to call it. I've got a granddaughter who's just starting to use a sippy cup, and we're passing each other on the spectrum. She's gaining in function, I'm losing it. But yeah, so when I say people have to eat, it's just the getting of the food up to me. I can't, I mean, I could put my face down the plate and eat like a dog,
Yeah.
which when no one's around, I'm not too ashamed to do. Because I like to eat, but I'm still able to chew and swallow. And that's a big deal, because when that gets affected, then you have to get a feeding tube, and all those kind of issues become way different. Everything changes dramatically. And those are the questions I'll have to answer when that time comes, because I'm not interested in a life that lingers beyond a quality that I'm satisfied with. And those are the conversations that Bevan and I will have to
Yeah.
have. And
Yeah.
once I'm done with the quality that I'm happy with, I'm ready to be done.
Yeah. I've heard of a few ways of sort of just killing yourself, or getting somebody to help kill yourself in a fairly relatively painless fashion.
Mhm.
Yeah. I remember a conversation I had. Let's see, somebody, I guess some sort of fairly evangelical type Christian. And I said, well, I just not expecting any sort of afterlife. And
Mhm.
he said, oh, bonus. And then he thought through the implications of his beliefs and said, oh, maybe not.
Yeah. Bonus for some people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Um,
feel free to raise your hand. Anybody
Yeah.
else have a question?
Well, I guess until somebody else raises their hand, I think I'll mention something I recall hearing about the Romans when they had the triumph for the victorious general. Uh, they had somebody whispering in the general's ear, "Remember, you too are mortal."
Mhm.
Well, one thing that has always kind of bothered me since I've been a non-believer, I can't think of anything worse than being in a hospital and being very sick and having a minister come in and think they're doing something wonderful. I just, that bothers me horribly. How do you have a way, or do you have a method of explaining to people that they are being cruel?
You mean when a minister's unwanted and they're still imposing themselves?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going to work on. We're going to work on some documents that, we want to offer these to anyone. We're going to have membership in the organization, but we're going to have it available for anyone. Just a simple, you can have medical directives that you give to your providers, directing them for medical things. We want to create a spiritual directive to where when you go into a hospital room or you go to a medical facility, you give this to the doctor, to the nurse, to whoever, and it spells out in detail what you do not want and what you do want. And, even a sticker you can put on the door says no prayer zone. Anything like that we can head off this unwanted intrusion before it becomes a conversation that can be sticky. So we want to provide members with materials that they can take with them, or even when they're registering to go into a hospital or go into a doctor and filling out the intake form that we all have to do. This is a thing that they then hand to them. And it's just official. It's their official proclamation, if you will, of what they do not want in the hospital room. That should, if a hospital cares about a patient's rights, that should be enough to head off any unwanted intrusion. If that doesn't stop them, then we got other issues altogether. But that's where we'll start. Is that what you meant?
Yes, well, I just imagine a preacher's believing that they're doing something good when they continue to intrude, and I think
Oh, they
that,
do. That's the
yeah,
problem. Yeah, that's where their zeal is.
Yeah.
They think they're doing God's work. They think they're on a mission from God,
mhm,
and they push right past your protection. They push past your resistance, and that's not right. And that's, we'll have a first document that you give to them saying, please don't do this. If they insist, then the second document will be more forceful to the hospital, a
mhm,
formal complaint against the person who did this.
mhm.
Because they've not, at that point, they have not submitted to your wishes.
Right,
That's not okay.
for sure. Okay. Jill, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, thank you for your talk. I've been really enjoying it. And Lois, that was actually a good point about the hospitals, because again, that's not respecting the freedom of non-religion. The question that I had was, how can we promote on a local, provincial, and national level? We have certain movement towards assisted dying, but what could we be doing more of to have that be more accessible?
Well, doesn't Canada have a nationwide MAID?
It's
Is-
limited.
It's limited?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's the problem I've seen with all of them, is that they're very limited in their scope. Like the ones in, excuse me, the laws in America, in the states where it's legal, have very, very narrow restrictions. Like you have to be within 6 months of death, signed off by 2 doctors. Well, that one in itself is problematic for me with ALS, because the last 6 months of ALS is something I want no part of. So I would probably never even take advantage of one of those laws if I lived in a state that afforded them. So what you can do on a local level, I think, is continue to raise your voice to the fact that these laws, even though they're a step in the right direction, are still too limited. And that, I mean, the bottom line is, truly, someone who's been given a diagnosis like mine, I should have the ability, and it should be completely legal for me to end my life at any point along the way. I shouldn't have to have a 6-month window or a 2-year window or a 3-year window or anything. I should be able to do it the day I get that diagnosis, if that's how I feel about it. Because 100% of the people who get diagnosed with ALS die. No exceptions. It's just a matter of how long it takes and how bad it gets. So I think you just keep raising awareness of that the laws are too restrictive and there's no good reason for them to be that way. And when you peel back the layers, the reasons are always religious. Always. There's no other reason. There's no other objection. It's always religious. No one's ever been able to give me a good reason other than some kind of religious dogma around death and dying.
Mhm.
That's interesting point. Thank you.
I've heard that the Christian prohibition on suicide came about when people tried to be martyrs, like very early on, when there was a certain amount of persecution of Christians, and the church didn't want to lose all their members.
I don't know. That makes sense. That sounds like something they would do.
Right. I've always thought it was rather ironic that we demand that humans do everything they can to not die regardless. But if an animal is in pain, it's, quote, inhumane to let them live.
Yeah, I've said that many times. We treat our pets better than we do our people.
Mhm.
It is inhumane to force someone to stay alive when their quality of life is long past acceptable.
Mhm. Hey, is there anyone else that has a question? As we used to say in college, speak up, you're among friends.
I don't know. I know you guys are way out in the west. Alberta's way out in the west, right?
Yeah.
Well, someone mentioned they were in Ontario. Was that you, Bart? But I'm going to be at a conference in Sarnia, Ontario in August. It's right across from Detroit. I don't know how close any of you are to that, but it's got a great lineup of speakers. The two guys that you're going to have there, yours, Seth and Aaron, are both going to be there. Matt Dillahunty, Hemant Mehta, Dan Barker, Greta Vosper, just a wonderful lineup. So if any of you can get to that, it's the last weekend of August, and it'll be on my, if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere, I'll be promoting it on my stuff.
Oh, that would be great. Yes.
Love to see you there.
Okay, Grant, did you have your hand up there for a moment?
Yeah, I did. I didn't seem to be able to get the thing working too well. But whatever.
Sorry.
I really appreciate that you were taking the time. It's very motivating. And I guess that's pretty much what you want. So just thought I'd tell you. But
Thank you.
one question, I assume that you have a few good Christian friends left. Maybe
Yeah.
not a lot, but a few. After 2019, I'm wondering, have any of them picked up and read your book? And does it really annoy you that they will not if they didn't? And maybe what excuses do they have to give to avoid? And also maybe have you had some good talks with them? What is a good talk with a Christian friend?
Well, I've had a few that picked up my book, very few. I've had others tell me they do not want to read that. They want to remember me like I was. I reached out to several friends from that era, even friends that were written about in the book. And they just didn't want to open that door, I think. Recently, one of my friends from my early Jesus Freak days has reached out to me, and he was making several efforts to persuade me to rethink things. And and saying things like, I just don't understand what happened to you, Dave. And I said, well, Danny, it's in my book. Read my book. I will send you a copy if you promise to read it. I don't want to read that. Okay, then you don't want to know what happened to me. You just want to change me. And I'm sorry that you feel that way. Most of it's been that kind of interaction. When you ask what would be a good conversation with a Christian, it would be someone who's truly willing to open their minds and think and consider that perhaps my journey was legitimate, rather than me just wanting to sin or being mad at God or any of the number of excuses they use. Just being willing to look at my journey as an authentic one. I think the sad truth is they're afraid to do that because they know that if it could happen to me, it could happen to them. And that terrifies them because they know they could lose everything.
Cool.
And I think most people just don't want to open that door for fear. And that's the only thing I can attribute it to.
I've often thought that. And also, okay, Michelle, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi. So I just had a question about so I left the faith maybe 2 years ago, really, really recent, but my family only found out maybe in the fall. And I also I have some health problems, like not terminal, but they affect me quite a bit. And all my family has the opinion that God uses this, like God's punishing me with health problems to like make me believe in him again. And I don't know, I'm just like really struggle with how to have a relationship with them when I know that that's their thinking.
Well, that's difficult because that kind of thinking is really awful. First of all, that they would put that on you verbally, and secondly, that they would believe in a God who would treat you that way. If the God that they believe in has to inflict sickness upon you to get you to believe in him, then what kind of an evil monster is he? And that's how I would say that to them. I would ask them to reconsider the God that they believe in. If that's the tactic, that's all he's got. He can do anything. He's omnipotent. He's reduced to making you sick. And the other thing I would say to them is, how do you answer to the fact that many Christians everywhere are just as sick as you, and many Christians get sick and die who believe fervently and pray fervently and yet get sick. So it rains on the just and the unjust. The Bible says that. And God doesn't use tactics like making you sick to get you to repent. But I'm sorry that they treat you that way. That's don't allow yourself to think that that's okay in any way. It's evil and it's wrong. And I hope you have a good support system to counter that kind of thinking.
Mhm. The support system has been really difficult because I was saying like all my support system was people in the church. And so like when I left that, I lost that. And it's really hard to like to meet new people when your health is not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it is. Are you familiar with Recovering from Religion, the organization?
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't replace community, but it helps. There's a good online presence there. They do also have every Monday night, they have a RFRX where they have a meeting like this with usually a couple hundred people from around the world there. And it's better than nothing. I mean, it's not as good as having that living, breathing community, but it is full of people that are in the same space you're in and get it. And it's a good support system.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Michelle. Bonnie.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'll lower my hand here. You are very inspiring, Dave. Thank you so much for doing this talk for us. This is great. I just wanted to make a comment. Before, well, actually for about 30 years, we've had a very evangelical neighbor who lives across the street. And since COVID and some interactions that I had with her, we are no longer speaking. But her claim to fame is going to the dying and getting them to turn their will and their lives over to God. And one of her biggest was her husband, who died about 7 or 8 years ago, and he had dementia. And they were married for a very long time. Why they were together, I don't know, because he was an atheist and she's an absolute nutcase. And she told me in the end that Glenn turned to Jesus. He had advanced dementia and she thought it was a win. And I just couldn't get that.
Yeah,
And sorry. And there's been, at that time when I was still talking with her, because I knew she was very, very religious, but I didn't know how far gone she was until a bunch of things came up. She was also going around to different hospitals. Now, I can't say that all of them were non-religious, but that was one of her, and she's probably still doing it, going around and saving them. And also there was a couple of people in our neighborhood who were very sick, and they were of different religions, and she got them. And so I have a lot of animosity towards this person. So it's very interesting what you were saying about, you know, the religious part and the hospitalization and whatnot. Just, yeah.
Yeah, that needs to be spoken up against. We would file a complaint against her if she was doing that in a hospital of one of our members. That's the ideology that we want to develop with the organization, to give some people room to do that sort of thing and push back against that kind of proselytizing. She's probably getting people to pray with her just to shut her up and leave them alone. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if people were doing that. Yeah, okay. What do you want me to pray? And then
Yeah,
just
yeah.
leave me alone.
But-
Okay, bye. Okay, I'm saved. Bye. Yeah, that's
It's really, really sad.
people like that are the worst. They're
They
trying to get
absolutely. Absolutely.
notches in their belt for God, and it's just disgusting.
It's amazing because she drives a big Cadillac, and like it's an SUV, and her license plate is Testify.
Oh,
So
geez.
I mean, she makes no bones about what she believes in, and at Christmas
Well-
time, she has a whole area cut out from her big pine tree with the whole nativity scene blazing away, and her
Wow.
car's been hit twice over the last few years. Like somebody has, it looks like, purposely run into her SUV, and I'm sure because she openly advertises, you know. We have a lot of Muslim people around here who may not like that. So
I bet she's a lot of fun at parties. Yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
thank you.
yeah, you bet. Thank you, Bonnie. I see your note, Adrian, in the chat. Your uncle died from ALS, used MAID 2 months ago. The process was very good, according to my head. That's wonderful. That's what MAID is for. It helped his end be better than it would have been. Yep. Sorry for your loss, though. ALS sucks.
Well, the only good thing about Bonnie's neighbor friend is that she came to our group, and now we have her, and that's
No.
very good.
No, that
Yes.
is that's a different one.
Oh my goodness.
That's the one. I know. That's the one I still deal with. Like we are friends, neighbor. This other one lives directly across the street from us.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, I'm surrounded. So, yeah. The other one actually came to the group and listened, and
Yes.
we had to stop because it was driving me crazy. So
Mhm.
with her trying to teach me.
Well, but we're lucky to have you part of our group.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
So the name of your book, Dave, is Dying Out Loud, right?
No,
Right.
that's the new one. The one that's out now, the memoir, is Childish Things, a memoir. Yeah.
Okay, childish.
It's off the scripture. When I became a man, I put away childish things. That's where 1 Corinthians that I played on that.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it's Childish Things. The new book will be Dying Out Loud, which should be out late this year, hopefully. And the organization is IamDyingOutLoud.org.
Okay.
So follow along, see what we do.
We sure will. Vincent, would you like to ask your question?
No, I was just wondering if I could preach my atheism just to. I'm kidding. Do you belong to other organizations in the United States that that are atheists, but do go to the hospitals themselves, or is it just yours?
Well, I don't know if, I mean, the American Humanists Association and the Humanist Society have they have a system of certifying humanist chaplains. And I'm going to be meeting with them when we're out at the conference in a couple of weeks and trying to help coordinate a system to use ex-clergy from the Clergy Project, which I'm a part of, to build up the network of secular chaplains and celebrants to do weddings and funerals and so on. But I don't know of an organization that's specifically focused on hospitals and the medical field, like we're going to focus on. That's I haven't heard of one that's doing it, and so that's why I felt like once we started talking about this and getting feedback from people and people telling us that they hadn't heard of anybody focused on this, I felt like we'd found a niche that wasn't being served very well. So
Right.
that's why we're going to focus on the medical field and the religious overreach in it. We're pioneering.
Yeah.
Well, those are some fabulous ideas that
Thank you.
that aren't being done. Yeah.
I think it's a need. I've heard from more and more that it's a need,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that people feel like there's a void there that's not being taken care of.
Yeah,
Bevan is so good. She's always reminding me what to not forget to tell you. Don't forget to tell them that my personal website is daveoutloud.org. So that's to make different from the iamdyingoutloud.org.
In the Canadian hospital, well, in the Alberta hospitals anyways, I've stayed in one a few times, and they do have a form that you can sign and give it to them, stating what your religious affiliation is. And I believe mine is permanent, and it just says no religious affiliation. So
Yeah,
there is that. So just to
Yeah.
inform people that
well,
there's that.
there's our goal is to even change some of the terminology. For instance, the intake form, I went to the doctor for a physical a month ago, and one of the questions on the intake form was, how often do you attend church or religious services? It wasn't, do you attend church or religious services, or are you a part of any community social functions? It was specifically, how often do you attend church? That's an assumptive question. The language needs to be changed from that assumption that I go to church or that I should. First of all, it has nothing to do with my health. And if they think it does, that's another problem altogether. The church is going to make me feel better or be better. Now, social interaction may be a benefit to our health, but there's ways to ask that question without implying that I should be going to church. So we're going to ask them to change the language on those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that's illegal up here.
It should
Can't
be.
do that. Yeah, it's yeah. There's
We want to make it illegal here.
they wouldn't get away with that here.
We get away with
At least
all
I
kinds of-
think it is.
We're-
Canada, Alberta and Canada has so many unwritten laws that it's just fairly hard to tell sometimes. So
Well, don't forget, we're a Christian nation, or so they would tell us.
yeah.
Just ask Ben Franklin. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about Catholic hospitals. When I was a teenager or starting college, I worked in a Catholic hospital summers, to earn a few pennies before I went back to school. And every morning there was a priest that went to every room. And you just, you couldn't avoid it. And I think that's when I began to get my anger at, anyway, Do you know anything about the Catholic hospitals and how?
They're awful.
Oh, okay. They're
No,
still,
the problem I have with them, I mean, if you go into them, you know what you're getting into. You should anyway. The problem is there are communities that don't have many options besides that. And that's problematic. Now, we don't know yet, and we're going to get into this. We've got lawyers helping us look at stuff. If a Catholic hospital is receiving government funds in America, that's a problem.
Hmm.
Especially if they're withholding care because of their moral constraints. Then if they're receiving government money, they can't do that. So we're going to investigate what we can and can't do in that regard in terms of if a person wants what the Catholic Church offers, that's fine. But if a person doesn't, and that's the only option they have in the community, they should be able to receive the care they need, regardless of what the priest thinks.
does anyone know here in Canada, several years ago, I heard a presentation about someone being in a Catholic hospital and they refused the whatever you call it, maid, and they had to move him to a different hospital. And
Yeah.
the move itself was horribly painful. And does anybody know about how that works in Catholic hospitals in Canada?
There was a talk a few years before pre-COVID about that very subject of the one guy that was moved. I didn't even think there was such a thing as a Catholic hospital, but apparently there is.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're there.
What do you know? I didn't know. Here anyways. And
Well, there was a hospice. Interestingly enough, there is a hospice in Sarnia, Ontario, that had the organizers of the conference where I'm speaking in August were supporting them with some of the proceeds of the conference. And when I found out about that, and I found out it was a Catholic hospice, I raised a big stink. And I said, I'm not going to come to the conference if you continue to support this hospice, because this hospice in their print online, and now the organizer said, no, they're not really Catholic. They just had Catholic origins. They don't do anything. They don't withhold service. He was wrong. He was not informed. And I found out that very plainly stated on their website, they said that they would not offer medical assistance in dying because of their religious ideals. And I said, that's not okay. And I won't be a part of the conference. And neither I'm going to tell my friends that are coming to speak why I'm not coming. And I put my foot down, and I didn't mean to make a fuss. Well, I kind of did. It was against my principles to be a part of a conference that supported a hospice that would not offer legal medical assistance in dying. And the conference changed their mind and they pulled away from the hospice.
Wow.
Did the right thing. So I was pleased about that. But those things are out there. Those hospitals and hospices are out there, and it's disgusting.
well, he was moved to a different hospital in order to have the assisted death at that time. It was not called MAID at that time. It was called something else. And it was just something that was just passed in legislature. So, but he eventually did get the assisted in dying that he needed. So,
Well, the one
but they moved him from one hospital to another hospital, which I think is pretty bad. But
well, the one I heard about, the actual move was extremely painful.
yeah,
Just to be moved around. So, oh.
mhm.
That's unconscionable.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah,
Human beings.
yeah. I think with MAID, Yeah, they still have that law in effect that a hospital can refuse to do it, so. One of the provisions in the law.
Is there anything that you can think of, Dave, that a group like ours, like our Rocky Mountain Atheists, could, any kind of project that would help along the line of work that that your nonprofit is going to be doing? Or what would you suggest, like if we wanted to do something for the community along that line?
For your own community?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just raise awareness is the main thing. Let people know, share your stories of religious intrusion, speak up against it. We have people going into doctors' offices and seeing the Bibles and religious pamphlets and asking them to remove them because it should be a religion neutral zone. We're not asking, just a level playing field. If you're going to put Bibles out, then put the Qurans out there as well, and the Book of Mormons and all the things. But it's better to have nothing. And so most of the time when you do that, they take them out.
Mm-hmm.
People just have to speak up. And that's the thing. We haven't been speaking up because I don't want to make any waves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we need
to. David Spencer, would you like to ask your question?
I'm going to make an assertion rather than a question.
Okay.
Covenant Health, which is a hospital maybe network in Alberta, says Covenant Health will support persons in our care who seek more information regarding options, including palliative and hospice care, but will not participate in or provide medical assistance in dying. It's a Catholic. Did I say that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's still the case in Alberta. I think that's what Vincent was saying, and just looked up on their website.
That's countrywide.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's a battle fighting everywhere. It's just it's people's reluctance to allow folks to have autonomy and freedom in how and when they die. And I know everyone's afraid of the big suicide word. And once you open that door, it's a slippery slope and all of that. But it is still taking away from people in serious need. It's taking away the choices and freedoms they should have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
David, again?
I said there are at least one hospital. They have 18 hospitals in Alberta.
Oh, in Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Maybe we should take that on as a challenge.
They are in Alberta only.
Take on that challenge right there. Take on that hospital chain.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something.
We'll find out if what they're doing is legal. With respect.
It is. They totally have that right to refuse.
You can still raise objections about it. You can still, because things that are legal now might not be legal a few years from now or weren't legal a few years ago. Laws change because people raise their voices against them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We could always try.
Well, folks, I'm out of gas. That's about my voice is gone, and I need to. I've got about an hour and a half limit into what I can do.
Okay. Well, we
Sure.
appreciate more than we can say. We appreciate everything that you do, and for spending the time with us tonight. And
It's been a pleasure. You got a great group here. Sorry I can't be at the conference next month, but I'll try to do it next year. I told Brian I'd do it next year. So
well, we'll be depending on that.
okay.
And we'll be sure and put links to all of your organizations and web pages in actually we'll put them in our next newsletter and make sure that everybody knows about it. And and other that we can donate to your new nonprofit, can we not?
Absolutely. It's, if you go to the website, iamdyingoutloud.org, there's a donate button there. It's pretty painless process, and we appreciate your support. Thanks for just raising awareness and speaking up and supporting. It means a lot.
Well, it means a lot to us that you have spent the time with us tonight, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
There's just no way to express how we feel about what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. You
so
guys
much.
are a good group. Have
Thanks,
a good
Dave.
conference. Say hi to Seth and Aaron for me.
We will do that. Okay, I'm not going to
Great.
shut down the meeting. But if you need to go, then go. I know it's late where you are, so
Yeah.
thanks.
Oh, yeah. It's 2 hours early. I got my time backwards with Lois. I flipped it 2 hours forward instead of 2 hours back. I'm stupid. All right, guys.
Okay.
Pleasure being with you.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
You.
Thanks so
Bye,
much, Dave.
everybody.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Dave.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you, Brian. You were the one that got me in touch with Dave. I appreciate that very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Yeah, no, there was somebody else that I met said we should get Dave. And it
Mhm,
was like, great idea.
mhm.
Oh, he's great. He's really good.
Is everybody just kind of speechless after that?
Well,
Yeah, speechless.
Sort of,
I think I'll take off, but that was fantastic. Take care.
I'm ready to take off. I'm
Okay.
I'm too tired to do anything much.
Sounds good, Jim. So
Thanks,
It looks
Lois.
like-
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.
Lois, I have a couple questions about your conference.
Mhm.
Just curious to know if you, who all organized it? Did you outsource any help for like event planning, or did you guys do it yourselves?
Oh, we are doing it ourselves. We have a committee, actually a couple of other members, Brian and Adrian, and that are here right now are part of the committee, and a couple more people. No, Dee Dee, is she still?
I don't know if she's still here, but she was.
Okay. So almost all of our committee members are right here. No, we are doing it ourselves. We're doing it kind of on a shoestring, and we're just thrilled about the way it's working out.
Yeah, I mean, you have a great schedule, like really organized. It's really, really attractive. If I wasn't so far away, it'd be more attractive for me. I'm in Ontario again.
Yeah.
And stay with us.
Yeah. Stay,
Adrian has a big house with lots of rooms in it.
Okay. Very
I've got a
cool.
spare room as well. So yeah, fly out.
I'm trying to turn on my camera here. Oh, there we go. So I'm a part of a group out here. We're thinking of putting on a conference next year sometime. And just like, yeah, we're totally green. No one's organized a conference. We tried to enlist the help of other experienced people, and they're like, yeah, put on 3 or 4 conferences, and I'm not really interested anymore. Actually, he did one in Bill Ligerwood.
Yeah. He did the INR, Imagine No Religion conferences. He did a great job.
Yeah, sounds like he really knows what he's doing, and we got a committee and everything, and we don't know if we're gonna do it for sure, but we're just floating ideas. And
What's the name
so
of your organization?
we don't know. It won't even be like this. It won't be 2023. It'll be 2024. It's so in the infant stages of planning, and yeah. So we'll cross that bridge then. But just curious on the logistics and whatnot. What was the biggest obstacle? Did you have trouble finding a venue, or was that easy enough?
No, most hotels have conference rooms and things like that where they're pretty set up for it. It was, I think, the one thing was that the president of our organization just said, of course we can. And we just, oh, okay, I guess we can. And we formed a committee and just did it. I mean, I'm blown away at the way it has come together.
Well, especially the speakers that we have too.
Oh,
That's
Unbelievable.
pretty
Thanks a lot,
amazing.
Brian knows everybody, and he's done a lot of that, contacting speakers.
Thanks, Lois.
We just jump in and do it.
Very cool, very cool, and great price point. And the hotel rooms, how did you get that deal? What is it, 109 a night?
Well,
Yep.
part of it was because we booked it before the pandemic, and they're honoring
Is that right?
they're honoring the prices from before the pandemic.
Oh, not for me. It's close to $200.
Oh, you didn't get the conference rate?
No.
Oh, you
How
have it in the conference rate.
How can I do that? I didn't even know that there was a
Oh, yeah.
conference.
You
rate.
phone and you tell them you're with the conference, and you get $109 a night.
Mhm.
Well,
You're welcome, Vincent.
I'm gonna do that. Thank you. Thank
If I
you.
see you, you owe me a beer.
Oh, all right.
Like ridiculously cheap hotel price. Those are like, university
It's
dorm prices.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm gonna call up the hotel and
Yes,
like.
please.
So
I don't know sorry, I was going to say, the only thing I don't know is we're getting pretty close. I don't know if that offer is still on. I don't know if there was a deadline. So there might have been. I don't
Oh,
know.
if there wasn't anyways, I'm already pre-booked
Okay.
anyways.
Yeah.
But if I can get it for cheaper, I'm gonna
Absolutely phone.
sure
because
give it.
That's something
give it-
Generally is in charge of. So I don't know all
How
the.
do I prove that I'm part of the conference?
I think you just have to phone them up and say.
Just tell them.
You just tell them?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
So Bart, how did you find out about our meeting, this meeting to come to?
I think I've been Googling humanist groups across North America, just I like to drop in, get different perspectives on different humanism and atheism, skeptics, free thinkers, and we're living in a very interesting time, and there's so much to talk about.
Right.
And so I just saw this meetup. I think this is my second time.
Oh,
And,
Nice.
well, welcome. We're thrilled to have you.
so it's nice to meet you all. It's been an interesting time in history.
Oh, it is. Interesting can be used in a lot of meanings.
Indeed. What do you mind if I ask, like, what your numbers are for the conference? Do you know yet?
What have we said?
150 people, I think we have.
Oh,
What's that?
Brian he's the most optimistic person in the world.
That is optimistic.
Well, the press releases are going out tomorrow, so hopefully we'll get some more. But we're approaching 70, I think.
Yeah, we're 60 something. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Right.
And some donations and other things.
And what's the date?
It's not this weekend, the next weekend.
May the
Oh,
6th.
the next weekend.
The night before.
Come out May 5th.
You come out, I'll buy you a
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah.
You buy the ticket, I'll buy
see
you a
what
beer.
I can do.
I'll buy you a beer and give you a room. So
Okay.
Well, I
Well,
wouldn't
that's
give him
deal.
a room.
Brian.
Brian will give him a room. You can have the cost. Yeah.
I mean, you've already done everything you should do, and it sounds like it's going to be a great conference. I saw this conference tips by Dave Silverman. He was with American Atheists,
Yeah, he was.
Atheist Alliance, I forget. And he had
Yeah.
like 10 tips on putting the conference together. And the one thing that might apply to you is to have an event, or like, do you say you're doing write-ups in the paper like beforehand?
Press release. We're doing
press
press
release,
releases?
yeah.
Yeah, and then media release 2 days before, and press passes, and so we've got all that in the works right now. So
There's that event website. We're gonna put our thing on there. I think that'll be good.
What's it
It
called?
comes out just the week before. There's like what to do this weekend in Calgary.
So
Nice.
one of the big things, if you're putting a conference together, is asking people who know what they're doing how to do it.
Yeah.
One of our speakers, Celestia Ward, is she does a podcast, but she is also part of a PR firm. That's her job. So she has walked me through how to do a press release, like free of charge, right?
Very nice.
So yeah, ask those people, get people you know, and that have a certain expertise. And like Brian was great at finding all these atheist connections, right? So you need to find people that have the right connections and the right knowledge and et cetera, et cetera. So
And also don't be afraid to ask. I mean, I used to be terribly, I mean, you know, the last few webinars, a month ago, we had Phil Zuckerman, and a year ago, I don't think I would have had, you know, the nerve to ask him. And I find out that people are really willing.
Yeah.
And like, next month, Susan Gerbic will be speaking at our webinar, and she was thrilled for the chance. And so we always get these strange feelings that oh, they would be interested in us, and they are.
Yeah.
So I just had a meeting because I'm also part of Atheist Alliance International. I'm actually president of that, so I'm sorry to do the plug here, Louis, but there was some interesting. One of our advisory council members happens to know some amazing people like Penn and Teller and William Shatner, and some big names that, you know, they're actually atheists, that we're going to make approaches, because why not?
Yeah.
You never know.
Absolutely. I mean, what the worst that can happen is they can say no. I mean,
Absolutely.
how bad is that?
I just listened to one of Seth Andrews' podcasts, and guess what he mentioned?
WeCanReason?
He did. He mentioned us. He did.
He told me he was going to do that, so I'm glad he did.
Oh,
He did. He certainly did.
I figured he would. He's the reason that I ended up going to Imagine No Religion in Toronto. How long ago was that, Lois? That's right. I met Lois in Toronto, not in Calgary.
Oh, wow.
Religion.
Yeah, we were actually chatting with Spencer Lucas.
Yes.
Or is it Lucas Spencer? I think Spencer Lucas. Yeah, the organizer of that one. We had him on the committee one night, and he's not really wants to take it on, but he offered some great suggestions for us too.
Yeah, that was an amazing conference. And
yeah.
I learned about it via Seth Andrews' podcast. So that was pretty cool.
Does anybody know Noah Illusions?
Yep.
No Illusions? Yeah. He that's not his real name, but he uses it anyways because of where he lives. But I would love to have those three guys go into the conference. They are definitely comedians.
What do they do? Oh, they're comedians.
They're comedians, but they also do scathing atheist, god-awful movies. They critique bad Christian movies, and there's lots out there. Yes. And the three of them are just amazing. No Illusions.
What are they called? No Illusions?
They're Puzzle in a Thunderstorm.
What is that?
Their group is called Puzzle in a Thunderstorm.
Puzzle in a Thunderstorm.
That's what their company is called. They do god-awful movies.
Okay, and I think what he's saying is Noah Lugens, which is, I just put it in the chat. That's the guy's name.
Oh, yes. It sounded like you said No Illusions, and I was going to say,
that's what I'm.
Roses.
That's what he changed it to. No Illusions. That is his name.
Yes.
Well, his name that he uses for like all of the other conferences, and then
double entendre.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but they're a funny group, and if you know who they are, I haven't seen one of their conferences, of course, because you know it's about $1,000 to go to one of them, so and I don't have that kind of cash.
Well, we have illusions of becoming like the Skepticon that's in St. Louis every year. Their conferences are always free. Because they raise money all year long. And this has been going on for years and years. And so they always have enough money to offer a conference free by the time
Oh, well,
year comes around.
these guys go to Australia and go to England and the UK and stuff, so that's why their conferences are like $1,000. So, but yeah. Did you find them, Brian?
I found no illusions. I found, but
You look up God awful movies. That's another. He's part
God
of.
awful movies. They're very famous for that.
okay, thank you.
It sounds like Seth Andrews. That's what he likes.
Yes.
Loves God awful movies. Yeah, he has
Yeah.
no illusions on. Probably once every few years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just thought, for next year kind of thing or
Well,
whatever.
we should get the lineup going for next year.
Exactly.
They are really funny. They're just, but one of them usually goes on stage naked or somewhat better, very
Well,
close to naked. And
Where are they based out of?
they're based in different places from the United States.
Okay.
They're from the States, but they live in different places.
oh,
So
Okay.
they meet every so often for their Scathing Atheist is one of their podcasts.
mm,
Scathing Atheist, Dear Old Dads now is a new one that they're doing because one of them is a father.
Ah,
Yeah, the youngest one of them, damned if I could remember his name. All I can think of is No Illusions. That's troubling.
Well,
See,
what I
we
think
get
is
to
really
be-
great about ours was that when Adrian was in Australia, someone there,
Yes,
was it someone at your presentation that said they heard about the conference when they were listening to a podcast by the Godless Mom, who's going to be speaking.
yes.
And I'm sure she'll be thrilled to hear that she has
following.
followers in Australia. Yeah. So
Courtney Hurd, I think is
Hurd,
her name
yeah.
is.
Uh-huh.
Courtney Hurd. Yeah. I listen. I see her. I see her on Twitter all the time, so
Yeah.
I follow her on Twitter. So
she's going to be telling us about her podcast, Q Dropped.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
she has talked to people who've lost relatives or family members to QAnon.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be interesting.
Oh
What
yeah.
did they do? Drink some Kool-Aid? What do you mean they lost people to
Chris.
QAnon?
Well, they got so wrapped up in it, they just couldn't communicate with them anymore. They just kind of
Oh, ideologically lost.
yeah, right, yeah.
Oh,
Person with the number got it.
Yeah, the
Did you
person
see that, Brian?
is Chris. He
Oh.
up at the beginning. So Chris put in the chat all the different things that no
On the
illusion
chat. Yeah.
in the chat got off of his
Okay, I was just writing it all down, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All there.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So another person that knows, Chris, whoever
Mm.
Chris is.
Bart, you said you were interested in starting a conference. Well, this is being one of our big ones and our big step ups for us. We're going to have some lessons learned after this. So if you stay in touch, I'm sure we'd be glad to share that with you.
sounds good. Yeah, I'm all ears.
Or if you
want to
actually
know
come
as
to
well
the
how it
conference.
goes.
I really hope we see you here, Bart.
Yeah, that'd be super.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll do what I can. What do I have? 10 days to make it happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how does everyone feel? Like you're just in auto mode now? Everything's taken care of. You just kind of got to show up or what?
not
Loose
quite.
ends, there's always loose ends.
No,
Right.
Tying them up as we find them.
it's been busy. There's been a lot of emails flying around. You guys have been doing so much work.
I apologize for all my emails with regards.
No, it's
Apologize.
you're working hard. I feel like I'm not helping much lately, so.
Well,
I
I've
think
been feeling
the-
this. Yeah,
I
well,
think
Adrian
the-
is amazing as far as all the things that she gets done. I don't know how she does it.
I think somebody.
I ask for help. I'm really good at asking for
That's
help.
very good. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was your son that came up with the name
Yeah.
WeCanReason, Western Canadian Reason. Dave told me before everybody came on that he thought that was so clever. He just loved that name. And I said, well,
Yeah.
the son of one of our committee members came up with that.
I was so thrilled when he came up with that.
Oh.
It was like, oh, you've got, I asked them, I said, we need a name for this conference. And we've been throwing around some various things. And so he really fine-tuned what we've been throwing around, but he fine-tuned it brilliantly. So I thought
he sure did. That's couldn't be better.
yeah, because I love
Yeah,
it.
great branding, great website, easy to navigate. Like this is all part of it, right? It's just very attractive. It just you guys sound very organized and competent, and it means something. It really does.
We're trying.
Well, the guy that does the website, the webmaster, he has done a tremendous amount of work, and he just gets right in there, and we make one suggestion and it's done. I mean, another person that's phenomenal. So
it's a team.
I would say the conference is a lot more work than I thought it would be. It's good that we have like a good group of people doing a lot of work.
Oh yeah, if we had if we didn't have a doer group, it wouldn't happen. You have to have doers, or else it's not going to happen.
It's catching. It's when someone has total confidence that of course we can do this.
Yeah,
it's kind of catching, and you sort of think, oh yeah, okay, well then, and you jump in and get to it.
And we have to anticipate that something's going to go wrong. Like we're going to have some technical issues probably, because it seems to always happen at every conference, and we have to be okay with that and just take our time. Somebody might get sick.
It was only a few weeks ago, we didn't even know if we were going to do it. We had to make the final decision because and even now we're just kind of just break even, like, so
even quite
it's been stressful, do we do it? Don't we do it?
Yeah.
It's been last minute decision.
Hi, Bonnie.
Bye.
But now I believe we're going to get 150 people, so it's going to be awesome.
I love your optimism, Brian. I just hope what my biggest fear is we get 150 people the day of, and then all of a sudden they can't handle that many people for food.
Yeah,
that would be a problem.
Yes, that would be a problem.
We need to,
pizza. We'll order pizza.
Oh, that's a great idea, actually, Brian, and that's a great contingency plan.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It always works. Order like stacks of pizza.
The hotel does have a restaurant in it, though, a full restaurant.
Yeah, but go from 70 or 80 people to 150. I don't know if they would actually have that much food on site. They might be able to get it quickly. They might be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Do you have to use the hotel catering? Is that like a stipulation? Yeah. So I'm on researching venues in Toronto, and we don't even know what city we're going to be in. We have another board member checking out Ottawa, and we're leaning towards Ottawa if it does happen. But yeah, that's one thing I'm finding.
I was going to say, could you go towards Montreal? I wouldn't mind going to Montreal. It'd be a nice trip.
Did you see that, Brian? The names?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Ottawa's not far from Montreal. Hours.
That's true.
True enough.
Right.
Hours,
Ottawa's close to me, so yeah, I'd be down for that.
Now we're I will warn you, we are not hoping to, but we do want to have some good debates on some controversial issues that I don't think it's gonna, if it does happen, it's not gonna be a typical atheist conference. We're gonna be challenging some big taboo topics.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, I like that.
Yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they have had conferences like that. I've seen that online. I'm very thankful that our group isn't doing that, but
well, yeah, we don't know what to expect, because there is blowback, there's protesters, there's like, how much security do we need to hire?
That was one fear that I had for our conference is there going to be protesters?
I don't think we have anybody who's really controversial, so no, I don't think so.
Right, yeah.
Like if you think there's just,
we get people commenting on our Facebook page about You know, they're praying for us.
Oh.
Really? That's awesome.
Yes.
That's actually pretty good.
Dear.
Yeah.
Well, my friends, it's after 9. This has been wonderful. And Bart, it's so nice to meet you and good luck. And hope you
Well.
join us in our webinars anytime you want.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's late there, but no, we're.
I sent you
Yeah,
my
those ones
phone
a
number,
month.
Bert, so
What's that? What's that, Brian?
I sent you my phone number, so if you decide to come, text or whatever.
Okay.
He's
I
offering
see
you a
it.
place to stay.
You bet.
And the beer.
Pretty
And the
good.
beer. Yeah.
And the beer.
And
Okay,
what's in the hotel? What is it under? If I call and ask, which I'm going
To
to.
be under We Can Reason.
WeCanReason.
Yeah,
Okay.
just say We Can Reason conference. So we
We
want a
Can
We Can Reason conference rate and cancel the other one.
Okay.
Unless,
will.
unless that's expired, as I say, because we're getting pretty close to the conference now, so you can check it
Right,
out.
right. Okay.
Have they made it? Have you got can you cancel it all, Gavin, or no?
You mean Vincent? I would guess he booked a refundable one, I guess.
I booked a refundable one.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So I'm good. I can, yeah, I spent the extra $9 on
Yeah,
if
so
because you never know. You never know if anything should happen. I'd be able to cancel it really, really easily. So
Where are
Let's
you
say-
traveling from?
that would save me $80.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
You're welcome, Vincent.
thank
We're-
you. All right. Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Bye to
Thank you
all.
guys for
Good night.
organizing this.
Good night.
Bye, Jill,
See you
Bart.
guys.
Bye-bye.